ॐ सत्यं ज्ञानं ज्योतिररविन्द 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 त्वमादिदेवः पुरुषः पुराण त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानं वेत्तासि वेद्यं च परं च धाम त्वया ततं विश्वमनन्तरूप वायुर्यमोः अग्निर्वरुणः शशाङ्कः प्रजापतिस्त्वं प्रपितामहश्च नमो नमस्ते अस्तु सहस्रकृत्वाः पुनश्च भूयोऽपि नमो नमस्ते पुनश्च भूयोऽपि नमो नमस्ते
This is Amrita, Amrita's story. As a result of my stay at Madras, the tuft of hair on my head got shortened and shrunken. In my Pondicherry days, this tuft, shikha, had enveloped 3/4 of my head. Such a beautiful shikha, Bharati would always insist upon being removed whenever he would happen to see it. My mother, however, cherished for my shikha the same affection as she did for myself. Somehow a doubt had crept into my mother's mind that I would one day reduce the shikha to nil. She would often tell me, keep the shikha as it is. Do nothing with it in play. She would express to her companions that if someday her child's shikha came to an end, it could only be through Bharati. Destiny, however, did away with this stately shikha. How? I shall narrate. During my 2-year stay at Madras, my shikha's form shrank to a lean tuft. That was the contribution I had to make for my life in Madras. In the year 1917, I do not quite remember the day and the month. Probably during May, I put up as usual in the house of Sri Aurobindo when I came to Pondicherry. This time, I had decided to stay for 2 days instead of 1. The inmates of Sri Aurobindo's house would sometime begin a conversation at about 9:30 p.m. and continue it till after midnight. And when I was in their midst, the conversation would prolong itself much later than midnight. This discussion would embrace diverse subjects such as philosophy, social reform, the changes that ought to take place in the manners and customs of Indian life, various yogic practices, the characteristic difference between his yoga and the traditional ones, etc., etc. Amidst such talks, Sri Aurobindo would shine as the light of truth, shedding luster upon the central truth of everything. As luck would have it, on the second day of my stay, when the talk was about to terminate, it suddenly turned towards my shikha. The talk was indeed carried on in a spirit of jest and fun, but I had the apprehension that night that the shikha would no more be on my head. The importance of the shikha for such ceremonies as Upanayana, investiture with the sacred thread, marriage, Shraddha, annual ritual for the deceased, etc., is of course not unknown to anyone here. Next morning, having got up as I felt for the shikha, I found it non-existent. He found it after a long search hanging on a tree. I got struck with fear. How should I dare to look straight in the faces of my parents and relatives? A Brahmin youth without a shikha was no better than a pariah. Thoughts like these troubled my mind. I put off my decision to start from Madras to the 3rd day. There was none to sympathize with my mental agony, the bewildered state of my heart. All inmates of Sri Aurobindo's house appreciated the extinction of my shikha and scoffed at such senseless customs. I then went to Bharati thinking that he alone would show sympathy with my condition then. He listened to all that I said and exclaimed, "Do you have the courage to leave your family completely and come out of it? If so, from this very moment on, stay with me." Emphatically he pronounced the sentence and made no attempt to pacify my perplexed feelings. As my heart was attached to my parents, especially to my mother, I hesitated a little before replying to the words of Bharati and said, "Now the shikha is no longer with me. It is in somebody else's grasp. How am I then to stay with you?" It was in this strain that the reply came. I found at last consolation in the thought and feeling that on going to Madras, I would stay there in hiding, out of my parents' and relatives' ken. I started from Madras 2 or 3 days later. I heard afterwards that in accordance with Sri Aurobindo's decision and order, that shikha had been cut off. There is a custom still prevalent in South India to go to a temple and offer prayers there in order to remove the tuft of hair. The temple of Tirupati is held as the foremost among the places for this purpose. Why does God ask for the shikha? What mystery lies behind it? I cannot explain, nor can I say why Sri Aurobindo demanded my shikha. Not even 10 days had passed since my arrival at Madras, when my father, who had found out my lodging, came to my room. Astounded at my appearance, he stood fixed like a statue. It took him about 10 minutes to come to his own self, and then he sat down on the floor. Tears streamed down from his eyes. Some more time passed for the words to come out of his mouth. His words, when uttered, simply stupefied me. "You have broken our religious traditions and set at naught all religious rites and customs." Why did he speak so? There was no religious mark on my forehead, a blank brow, no tuft of hair on my head, no sacred thread across my chest. What else was needed? This was the ghost my father saw of me. I spoke not a word. About an hour elapsed before my father, without turning to me, said, "A girl has been chosen for you at Bangalore. She belongs to a rich family. Her parents have of themselves offered to bear all the expenses for your studies up to BA. They are likely to give as dowry 50,000 rupees in cash. I have just seen the girl. Yes, she is quite dark in complexion, with pock marks on the face, etc., etc., etc. Her family is extremely orthodox. And of what use then thinking about all these? You have pulled down the whole edifice that I had built." So saying, he got up all of a sudden and left. The sacred thread can be bought and put on. The religious mark can also be painted on the forehead. But where to go in for the shikha? The shikha was offered as the first fruit to Lord Sri Aurobindo? Was it not scrupulously orthodox brahmacharya? The shikha was scissored off clean by Nolinikanta Gupta. In obedience to Sri Aurobindo's order, at about 2 a.m. on the altar of the temple at sacred Pondicherry, in which Sri Aurobindo was the Murti deity, he performed this service when I was asleep.
अग्ने जरस्व स्वपत्य आयुन्यूरजा पिन्वस्व समिषो विधिनः विश्वतिं यौभमतिथिं नरः सदायन्तारं धीनामुषिजं च पाठताम्
विद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयाः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि तस्मिन् दृष्टे परावरे ब्रह्मैवेदममृतं पुरस्तात् ब्रह्मैवेदममृतं पुरस्तात् ब्रह्म पश्चात् ब्रह्म दक्षिणतश्चोत्तरेण अधश्चोर्ध्वं च प्रसिद्धं ब्रह्मैवेदं विश्वमिदं वरिष्ठम् द्वासुपर्णासयोजा सखाय समानं वृक्षं परिशस्व जाते तयोरन्यः पिप्पलं स्वादत्य नस्नन्यो अभिजाकशीति समाने वृक्षे पुरुषो निमग्नो हनीषया शोचति मुह्यमानः जुष्टं यदा पश्यति अन्यमीशवस्य महिमानमिति वीतशोकः सत्यमेव जयते नामृतम् सत्यमेव जयते नामृतम् सत्येन पन्था विदतो देवयानः येनाभ्रमन्ति ऋषयो यप्तकामा यत्र तं सत्यस्य परमं निधानम् ॐ माया हि वरदे देवी सर्वार्थसाधिके ॐ माया हि वरदे देवी द्वाक्षरे ब्रह्मवादिनी ॐ माया हि वरदे मीरा हृदये परमेश्वरी
ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्म हविः ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मेवतेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्म समाधिना एतत् सर्वम् ॐ ब्रह्मार्पणमस्तु ॐ ब्रह्मार्पणमस्तु
ॐ नीलाम्बुजगदाभिरामनयनां गौराङ्गीं शरदिन्दुसुन्दरमुखीं विस्मेरां बिम्बाधरां कारुण्यामृतवर्षिणीं हरिहरब्रह्मादिवीरवन्दितां ध्यायेत् सर्वजनेन्द्रितार्थप्रदां वन्दे मीरां जगत्प्रसूं वन्दे मीरां जगत्प्रसूं
मीरा नामैव मम जीवनम् मीरा नामैव मम जीवनम्
मीरा ममैव शरणम् मीरा ममैव शरणम् मीरा मम शरणम् मीरा मम शरणम्
Amrita, que Amrita, n'est-ce pas, il venait en dépit d'être malade, il venait me voir tous les jours. Il montait le matin, il s'asseyait là. Et il montait encore une fois le soir. Il paraît que c'est toi qui l'as vu. Il paraît que c'était très difficile le travail. Alors lui, quand il est parti, le docteur lui a dit, vous ne pouvez pas monter avant un mois. Et c'est après, je ne sais pas, c'est dans la journée qu'il est venu. Il n'a pas, il a quitté son corps, il est tout droit à moi. Mais alors lui était de sa forme, mais plus subtil, mais c'était très, très défini, c'était sa forme, à sa ressemblance, n'est-ce pas? Et il est resté là, tantôt il est actif, tantôt il se repose, plus longtemps il se repose plus qu'il est actif, mais de temps en temps encore il est actif. C'est comme une ombre, n'est-ce pas, qui est tout à fait dans mon atmosphère. Et il est resté là, il reste là, il se repose là, il voit.